Hello and welcome everyone to yet another episode of Media Minds Season 2, an IndianTelevision.com initiative which aims to delve deeper into the minds and lives of some of the leading marketers, advertisers, and publishers of our time. Here we discuss with some of the industry stalwarts their ideas, their strategies, and their thoughts on the latest industry trends. Joining us today, we have two young, dynamic, and as they call themselves, future focused individuals, the co founders of Zoom Media and FoxyMoron, two of the biggest digital agencies working in the creative and technical side both. Started in 2008, FoxyMoron is one of the brightest future focused agencies working with clients like Hershey's, and recently they did a film with Netflix for one of their shows. Pratik and Suveer, my question to both of you: when you all started with FoxyMoron and Zoom Media, if I'm correct, you weren't even 20 years old. You were very young, and you have had a little more than a decade of a very interesting and inspiring journey. Can you throw some light on that?
Sure. Thank you, Mansi. Thanks for having us. Happy to be doing this podcast with you. So, of course, yeah, we were 19 years old when we started FoxyMoron. Zoom Media, of course, is a much later initiative of ours, and we'll talk about that, as we go forward. But we were about 19 when we started FoxyMoron, and I think we were in the second year. We just finished the second year of college, and we were segueing into our third year, and we had to do summer internships after every year in college because we were doing a program called the Bachelors of Management Sciences in Bombay, Bachelor of Management Studies in Bombay. And I think after having done a couple of internships that didn't necessarily yield the best experiences individually for us, I think after that second year of college, we decided to not do internships. I remember I had done my internship the previous year at Indian Express. Pratik had done it at Balaji Telefilms. And there was a lot of typical, quote unquote intern work to be done. And the experience was less than, what we were looking forward to. And there were a couple of interesting, so as to speak, freelance opportunities that came about over the course of that summer. I remember it was the summer of 2008, and we finished college in March of that year. And I remember we were hanging out at my house, and Pratik was over, and we were just chatting about what plans we had for the summer. And I said, hey, I'm not planning to intern. I'm planning to help out a friend's father because he started a new library and he was doing a branding project. And Pratik said, he was looking to help a friend who had started a studio at the time and, doing freelance work. And I said, hey, I need help doing a little bit of the strategy piece there. And he said, hey, I need help doing a little bit of the content piece here. And there was another friend of ours, who was doing some website work. And we said, why not, we just pool our resources together and help each other out over the summer. And if we make any money, we'll split it, 3 ways. And from there, the Sindhi brain kicked in. I said, hey, let's register a partnership firm. Let's do this slightly formally. And towards the end of March, Pratik coined the name FoxyMoron. And that's where the dream was really born from. So we became, from being the kids who were looking out for internships, we then became the kids who are now handing out internships because we gave 8 of our friends who were in college with us, we gave them internships. And that was the founding team for us at FoxyMoron. So that was the journey as it began when we were 19. And now, of course, it's been 12 plus years. It's been nearly 12 and a half years. And now we're well into our early 30s. And yeah, it's been a dozen years running FoxyMoron. And this dream has become quite true and become quite a reality over the last few years.
Pratik, you would like to add something?
No, I think that's been the extent of our journey. I think we started off as just wanting to do something for 3 months. Now we've been at it for over 12 years. It's been one of the most real journeys that you can think of, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Suveer, you mentioned that Zoom Media came into the picture a little later. So before we discuss anything further, tell us about the story of Zoom Media as well, how it came into being. And it's quite big in size, and as I mentioned, a very vast clientele you have right now.
So the story of Zoom Media actually came into be rather recently. FoxyMoron, as we discussed, has been around since 2008, and we've typically been in the space of sitting at the intersection of content, media, data, technology as an agency. And one of the differentiators for us as an agency is that we like to be a full service agency and we like to offer our clients a holistic solution. But of course, the breadth of digital as an industry also kind of diversified and found a very areas for specialties as as time kind of progressed. So in 2016 we spun off a creative technology company called Phosphine, which dabbled in the space of AR, VR, MR, does a little bit of work with AI, ML, NLP, image recognition, voice, that kind of stuff. 2017, we spun off our own production house called The Rabbit Hole, which actually does all the video content creation work that you spoke about. Of course, a lot of work with Netflix and a lot of the TVCs and digital video commercials for a lot of the brands that we work with across the length and breadth of the country. In 2018, we partnered with a marketing technology company called Noesis Technologies that works in the space of marketing tech, and we're doing some great work with ad tech at the moment and doing some pretty cool work on the digital transformation side as well. 2018, we also spun off a talent management and influencer management company that works as a creator consultancy called Polin, that works with creators, across different platforms to work on their content and monetization strategies, and works to build out, great branded content opportunities and IPs for brands that we partner with and new brands in the industry as well. 2019 saw, the emergence of a couple of new verticals as well, new businesses actually as well. We spun off a small consultancy company called Doinoink Consulting that aims to work with young companies, startups that want to work with us as a network for our expertise, having worked with well-established brands across, various diverse categories, but don't necessarily want to be bogged down by big agencies and big structures and big fee cycles as well. So we spun off a small consultancy company that allows the leaders of our organization to channelize their industry focus and work with small and upcoming companies. And we work with them on very interesting engagement models and interesting compensation models that really tie us into the long-term growth of the company as well. Last year, we also spun off a media company called Mammoth Media, that dabbles in the space of creation of media assets and IPs, but not for brands. This is not necessarily branded content, but as a media company itself. So we got into the space of editorial publishing, we got into the space of long format content creation, we're getting into the space of podcasts as well. So Zoom Media actually sits above all these 7 agencies as a holding company, and Zoom Media actually came into being only last year.
I think it was just about us trying to look at the width of digital and like how we can create ecosystems to address all of the width. I think we realized I think 3 years ago that we're not going to be in a position to be the experts in everything that we do, right? So we need to create a network that allows for these experts to come in and work closely with us, whether we employ them full time in the network, or whether we have strategic partnerships like Suveer spoke about in the Noesis tech conversation. I think that digital requires both breadth and depth, right? So it requires the network to be agile enough to to be as wide as you require it to be, and it requires the right kind of people to be inside the network to really explore the depths that the digital ecosystem has. So the intent of setting up the holding company and the network in the form of Zoom Media was so that the clients legitimately get all the services in the digital ecosystem that they desire to get, and that they deserve to get. Actually, it seems like the most obvious thing to do, but it was probably the hardest thing that we've done over the last 2 years.
To continue with this whole idea of new media and the sort of agencies you are handling under it, what I see is that there's a unique mix of creativity and technology that's happening at your end. If you look at the film that you did for Netflix or the campaigns that you're doing for Hershey, and there is the technical side. Maybe it's for Swiggy or it's for Kotak. So you have been doing vast scope of work. So what are your thoughts on it? How are you managing everything together? How are your agencies and different agency heads are helping you out with it?
It's a fairly simple ecosystem in that sort of a way, right? Like there are people who are helping with the brand narrative in the sense of looking at the brand objectives, and then there are obviously experts in the various fields as and when they're required, they step in, or we make it a point to keep appraising the clients of all the new work that we're doing across the agency so that they're in a position to understand the width of the work that exists over there. Innovation is at the core of what we try and do at Zoo, right? Because also the digital ecosystem, like I said, is so wide that you need to continue to experiment, right? If you don't experiment, then you're not going to be able to figure out what is possible and what is not possible. Just the fact that this experimenting just gives us the high that we run. And obviously we have really responsible people at the top who are taking accountability for what needs to be delivered to the client. And I think writing a press release today, and I specified that our vision is to be the preferred network to brands. And because the vision is to be the preferred network to brands, I think integration of all of these agencies is core to what we do. And legitimately, I think it's been great that the last at least 15 months we've been able to see at least three or four of our agencies work with almost all of our clients. So it's really encouraging because it also validates our vision of the network.
Yeah, I think like Pratik said, the intention for us has always been to be a integrated solutions offering agency to our clients, and post, I think 2000, between 13 and 16, there was a lot of specialization that happened in the industry, and a lot of agencies picked a particular route and got known to be a particular, even we got known to be a creative and content first agency. And people would typically approach us because of our creative, but actually that gave us a lot of visibility into actually spending the next 3 or 4 years to actually solidify the integrated solutions offering for our organization. And it's been pretty unique actually for us, because with a lot of our clients, actually they work with us, and a lot of the new clients that we've onboarded as well, and I'm sure Pratik will talk about that later. We've onboarded, for example, Sher Khan, which is, and we've had a lot of play in the BFSI space lately. We've onboarded Dabur, onboarded Imami, and of course, unless there is some kind of consolidation with a mainline media buying agency, we're handling content, media, data, and tech across all these spectrums. And it gave us a lot of visibility, saying that if we are known to be a creative and content first agency, how do we better position ourselves from the perspective of pulling up our socks with tech and with media, and then with ad tech subsequently after that. And like Pratik said, that's really where the idea of aggregation and consolidation came for us. But I think what's interesting for us, what's become interesting actually over the last 3 years, is that while for clients like we're talking about, like Sher Khan and Dabur and Imami and Hershey's, and we can be an integrated agency to kind of offer 4 or 5 different solutions to them. There are also significantly large clients like a Netflix or a Swiggy or an NCPA, etc., that would work with us just for our core competency or our specialty in one space. So for example, Netflix came to us only because we have a very, very tight production team, and they work with us as a production client for us with the rabbit hole. And now we are trying to penetrate the network and upsell a variety of services from there. Similarly, we worked with Swiggy specifically on creative technology projects, doing some interactive tech and some gaming and some stuff like that. And then it gives us the opportunity to kind of really upsell from there. So what's really nice for us is that while the integration narrative is a very important narrative for us, each of the businesses have their own trajectory and have an independent source of clients that really work with them for that specialization, and not from an integrated marketing and campaign planning perspective. So that's, I think, fun for us as well, because leaders also get to learn both sides. They get to learn the integrated marketing side of things, and they also get to learn running the depth P&L and serving specific core value to their brand from their service offering.
Our briefs have changed basically. Earlier, like Suveer said, people used to come to us saying that, okay, can you give me a very edgy creative solution? Right, today we're having conversations on how to solve business problems.
And also another interesting aspect that I find about your agency is that you are also helping a lot of clients in the arena of customer services through digital medium. Can you brief me more about that? What sort of partnerships you have there? What sort of tools, technologies, and other services you are providing them?
So I think the onset of digital is about almost personifying brands, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've always written character stories and brand personification, drafts in core marketing terminologies, right? Like, what is the personality chart of this brand? Who is the person? Who is not the person? But I think over the last 4 to 5 years, this brand as a personality has started to express itself on digital, which is a great opportunity, right? Because even though earlier we've never interacted with the brand as a human being, we've always thought of the brand to be a human being or associated with a human being. Obviously, digital is also the kind of medium where a lot of people are complaining about service issues, product issues, and delivery issues. So I think customer service is three pronged, right? Like, one is the brand having a voice of its own and therefore interacting with brands that may be supplementary in nature, or interacting with consumers like a brand actually has a voice. The second is customer queries and all the customer problems that a brand actually basically faces. And the third and the most I think the most critical is the kind of data that you get from all of these activities, and also how do we utilize this data to further strengthen the relationship with the end consumer in whatever format that's possible. I think those are the three things that we do from a customer relationship point of view, right?
So I think, this customer first approach that we have, in a way, it pays off because a lot of digital marketing is actually dependent on, a lot of the tech solutions that we're actually building out are dependent on the platforms that we run them with, and of course, a lot is powered by Google, a lot is powered by Facebook, a lot is powered by Amazon, a lot is powered by, a lot was powered by Twitter in that regard. And what's not nice about having this, customer first approach also is, and while, like Pratik said, we do the listening and we do the data and we crunch the data and we crunch the numbers and we do the analytics. And because there's a deep sense of understanding of customer and putting the customer first, I think a lot of platforms also are very proactive in that regard, where they're happy to kind of help you champion certain new products, new inventory, new tools, which are customer first in nature as well. So in fact, like with these partners at Google and Facebook, we've had the opportunity to launch a lot of, or beta a lot of, or pilot a lot of tools or technologies, which are customer facing and consumer first in nature, to actually even validate the fact that, these are good products for the Indian market. They actually work with a particular type of customer inside a particular category. And I think that support and backing that comes from the partners who actually evangelize our campaigns and, for lack of a better word, take them live and take them to our audiences is, very reassuring in that regard, because there's a great support ecosystem behind, all the innovation that we're able to put over and above our customer first approach. And I think that validation really helps, see our last mile in delivery when it comes to a customer first approach.
Going ahead, as you said, that digital has a basket of opportunities out there, usually relies on how consumers are seeing it. Now, digital is segregated into a lot of smaller platforms now. There's OTT and there are social, there are searches. So, what sort of, in two parts, this question is, so what sort of platforms you are seeing gaining traction as an advertising medium in the coming few years? And what sort of technologies are going to be taking the front foot?
The broad answer is that's the intent of our network, right? Like if you see with Mammoth Studios, we're looking at OTT platforms, we're looking at the ability to create long format content, which is not brand first and brand led. It could be own content, it could be content that is just produced and put out on an OTT platform. For us, with the advent of of Phosphine, we're looking at what are the various functionalities that are coming into Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, any of the other technology pieces out there, and therefore what is the best that we can do to incorporate technology in the kind of content that we're creating. It could be like an image recognition solution that we actually put in for our clients because of the kind of business that they're in. Like I said, the breadth of this ecosystem is always going to continue to widen, right? Like right now, one of the biggest conversations is the dying of cookies, and therefore how is it going to affect advertising and advertising spend. The width of this conversation is always going to keep increasing as more and more people start to connect with the internet in various forms and ways. Having said that, I think you can't be sitting in a position like we're sitting and anticipate the uptake of what is going to happen and what is not going to happen, right?
What sort of opportunities do the MarTech companies have now? Are there some products that you are looking forward that they should be developing? Any suggestions you have for them?
To be honest, India has, by virtue of the fact that we've been a tech, hotspot, so as to speak, of generationally speaking, since, the generation prior to us, with, of course, the big boys at Infosys, Wipro having kind of set the agenda, and the TCSs of the world having set the agenda right in terms of India being a tech hotspot in that regard. Globally, also, there has been a trend for India to act as a back office for a lot of MarTech and a lot of ad tech that kind of materializes over the rest of the world. It's funny though, like for example, if you look at even programmatic, we are about 18 months behind what the rest of the world did. And if you look at, for example, the UK, which evangelized programmatic, well before India did, there's a lot of back office that India actually provides to global organizations around the world. And what's interesting is that because over the last 3, 4, 5 years, this startup culture has really picked up, while 10 years ago or 20 years ago in Bangalore, it would be aspirational to work at a TCS, and then a step ahead of that, it would be an Accenture or Capgemini or whatever, that narrative becomes. Now you walk into, a coffee shop well, not now, of course, there's lockdown and there's no one sitting in a coffee shop, but you walk into a coffee shop in Bangalore and it's beautiful to see that every table has, a bunch of, four guys sitting down brainstorming for their next tech startup. And in our industry, of course, that means a marketing tech or an ad tech startup, whichever way you look at it. And you'll always find one, a VC or someone who's evangelizing or someone who's scouting for them, sitting down and chatting with them. And I think this startup bug has bitten us in such a beautiful way, saying that we always had the talent, we always had the skill, we always had the capability. Maybe we didn't have the idea because we got exposed 24 months later. But today we have the idea as well. And I think that has kind of resulted in this huge boom and huge blossoming of very native marketing tech and ad tech culture across the country. And it's beautiful to see, when you look at a lot of international advertiser grids and, you see their advertising ecosystem, and they send you, typically it comes as one of the penultimate slides and on a client induction deck in terms of what, infrastructure and architecture they're using. And in that mix, you'll start seeing 2 or 3 marketing tech companies or ad tech companies from India, and it's a big, it's a proud moment for us to be sitting with, these international brands that we work with, and to see Indian logos up there. And hopefully, even as an agency, we're very excited that one day when they present their global creds, we're one of the agencies that they're presenting to the rest of the world as well.
There was this one chart that we saw in terms of marketing tech and advertising tech that that covered almost every aspect of this entire ecosystem, right? And this was a conversation that again we were having 2 or 3 years ago when we were deciding whether we want to take all of this in-house, or whether we want to take a bet on trying to build a lot of the marketing tech and advertising tech. And what we start to realize is that the space is highly crowded, right? We're struggling as an agency to be able to wrap our heads around all of the marketing tech and ad tech that exists pretty much out there. So again, it's how flexible and nimble that you are, right? There is stuff that exists out there, and there are ideas on how you can make it better. There are lots of things that we're actually doing, right? There's a marketing technology and ad technology platform that we're building inside of Instagram. It's called Shopper, and it's called Lando, and it's called a landing page solution, which is again, like Subi said, it's a first party data solution that we actually require, because once people start to move into the e-commerce ecosystem, it's a black hole. It's not giving you any data while coming back. Have we built the core of the technology ourselves? We don't need to. There's a lot of this stuff that's available out there. We built the technology on the Instagram platform. We've not built the technology on inside of any other platform. So we're using what's out there and we're building on top of it. And I think that's the narrative. And we would have done really well if we're able to go out and look at least 20-30% of the marketing tech and ad tech out there, versus trying to build even 2% of it.
And going ahead, also, if we look at the whole global socio-political environment, everyone is trying to be a nationalist now. India also is walking on that path currently. And as you said, that it's a proud moment when you see lots of Indian names in international magazines or on brochures which your clients bring to you. So do you think it's possible that we start a reverse trend, that something starts in India and then the Western counterparts pick it up later?
There's a lot of things that start in India. The population size that we have, right? You think about it in the kind of technologies that we use to reach out to that population. To give you context, the stuff that brands have done previously during the Kumbh Mela, right? Whether it is a Lifebuoy, whether it is the telcos who basically try to to capture that sort of an audience. These are all innovations that you look at and you think of and say, this is probably not a need that the Western world has, because 95, 98, 99% of their entire population is connected to a mobile phone, is connected to, some sort of an internet device. There are some places in the West who are asking for internet as a fundamental right. They've reached that part of the conversation, versus we have still a long way to go in terms of penetration, right? We may have 600 odd million people on the internet, but we're still about less than 50% of internet penetration in the country. So there's a lot of stuff that we do which doesn't happen in the world, and we are actually very well placed, and we continue to disrupt. It's just the fact that I believe that Indians are not the best at blowing their own trumpets.
Even in context to, we started where we said something that we don't necessarily has to be born in India, but India kind of owns and champions and then takes to the world is even the concept. If you look at data democratization as well, right? India has the cheapest data for the subset of people that access data, and the
Correct.
concept of data democratization has kind of been owned by by India in that regard. And credit credit where credit due. Of course, that happened when Geo came to the market a few years ago and democratized the concept of data. And that's not happened in a lot of other pockets in Asia, and definitely not happened in a lot of other parts of the slightly more evolved parts of the world as well. And we are, by virtue of the fact that we will be, the largest internet consuming population in the world very, very quickly, I think definitely, leading by example in terms of revolutionizing change when it comes to data democratization. Ironically, I mean, of course, now whatever happens with the future of Chinese apps in India. But prior to that, even though TikTok is not an Indian app, India controlled 45% of market share inside of TikTok.
So my last question to you is, how do you envision the whole Zoom media prerogative going ahead? What are your long-term and short-term goals, and how are you going about it?
I think our, like first part of our vision is out there and for everyone to see, right? Like, I don't think that if you think about it, we started talking about it, but we've not really made a formal announcement of it. I think that's how closely guarded it was for us till the time we didn't have a little bit of momentum. And now that it's kind of out there in the world, and people are now talking about it and talking about the integration. I think there are two very critical parts to it, right? Like, one, as I said, is that how do we become the preferred agency network for all of our clients, which means that how can we start to work with clients where they're using not only 7 or 8 of our services, but also 4 or 5 of the agencies inside of Zoom Media. That's the first part of the narrative. The second part of the narrative is that how can we find and create depth in each of these agencies for these agencies to stack up and create their own laundry list of clients, right? So a large reason for us to set up this agency ecosystem was that specialized business verticals were getting limited by the exposure that our clients were having through FoxyMoron, right? Like, so FoxyMoron can take you only this much with video services. FoxyMoron can take you only to a certain extent with influencer services. The fact that we're able to answer these questions in depth is because we are now competing not for the business that FoxyMoron has, but for the business that exists in the ecosystem outside.
I think for me, we've been doing some great work in the service space as an agency, and we want to continue doing some great work as an agency in the services model, so as to speak. I think our narrative has never been that, we had some 250 odd people. Our narrative has never been that I want to be 350, I want to be 650, I want to be big. And, our narrative has always been that we want to grow the clients' businesses that we work on, and we want to continue to add value to them. And I think that's where we take a page out of their book as well, saying that if our work has to be impactful and we add value to our clients, how do we now start creating value to ourselves? And I think that's the next step for the journey to for Zoom Media to really make, right? So like with technology, we're making a very, very concentrated shift towards developing products, right? And we want to, from the technology services space, evolve into the technology product space. And Pratik briefly spoke about, the Lander suite of products that we're building out with Shopper and Publisher, and we can chat more about that another time. But, really building out cool ad tech products that we're able to take to market. With the media side of the business, we're working on Mammoth Media, and we're building out podcasts, building out editorial and publishing, building out long format content on our own, which are not necessarily products in nature, but fit into the the product or the IPs model more than the services model, where we're actually taking products to the market and monetizing those products over a period of time through multiple different licensing deals or syndication deals, and through a variety of distribution techniques in that regard. And I think the journey has really become value creation for ourselves in that nature. Even if you look at Doino Consulting, for instance, we're working with various different clients in the incubation acceleration model, where we are actually becoming partners in their businesses and helping them amplify their growth and taking them through a variety of different stages in their own journey and taking them to fundraising, etc. But of course, the caveat of this incubation model is that we are also becoming partners in your business, and all of a sudden I own 6 or 7% of your business, and that's real value creation for me as well. So I think value creation for the network has become the very core principle in terms of our growth. And I think the second thing that we spoke about publicly at the beginning of this year, unfortunately, which has obviously got pushed back because of COVID and because of lockdown, was that our vision definitely is to take this network to the world. We do see international networks, seven, eight of them most popularly, come to India and kind of consume a large chunk of that market share. And while of course we are a small drop in the ocean, and it'll take us a lifetime to kind of continue to keep building this, and not necessarily a lifetime, but generations to keep building up this vision. But we should be very excited to stay on track with our journey of taking our vision to the world and becoming an Indian network that starts going from India to the world, kind of coming back to what we spoke about earlier, saying what starts in India and goes out to the world. And we'd love to chat more about that in terms of our international aspirations, and how we want the network to branch out into the world, and how we plan to capitalize on opportunities in the short run. So I think that's really our plan for Zoo in the short run and in the long run. And yeah, thanks for having us. Very, very excited to have chatted with you, Mansi.
Thank you so much for coming, Suveer and Pratik. You were a
Thank you.
delight to talk to